All right. Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. SQL WBA here, and I'm basically doing a stream that I just did in Spanish, but in English as well, because I want to make sure I record it for my YouTube channel. So basically, we are discussing something that comes up once or twice a week on Reddit, which is how should I connect Power BI to SQL Server or any other database platform that I have. And it's one that I'm very vocal about, and I'm very strong with my opinion on it, because Power BI is, I've been using the word rambunctious for like 7 years now for Power BI, because really that's the only word that I feel that actually captures the essence of what Power BI is when it's dealing with data sources, is rambunctious. And so it's not really Power BI's fault. Power BI runs on a SQL Server analysis engine, and so I would say it's not hugely different from that. Power Query itself will basically just take whatever data source you give it and get all of the data. Just give me all of the data. And then downstream, you kind of sort of start applying whatever transformation, whatever filtering. And one of the biggest things, actually, before I start rambling on, I'm going to do a quick gear check. So I just got this keyboard last night, and it is the Keychron K6 with the RGB option, and I think it has blue switches. Yes, I'm pretty certain it has blue switches, which I'm trying to get used to. They're very springy, but they're also very like clicky instead of clacky. Not sure if that makes sense. They are clicky but not clacky. Let me see. I might be actually put something together where I can maybe show the sound, or not show the sound, but allow the sound to come through a lot better. I have a microphone, which is actually right here. This microphone here captures just the keyboard, but I have it off right now. It's for a new session or a new sort of segment I'm trying, where all I do is stream, but just with this view and with the screen. So hopefully it's a lot less me talking. That means I can conserve my voice and also not be annoying, and not talk your ear off. Maybe there's some folks out there who just want to see people code, and I'm happy to facilitate if that's the case. So that might be what I do. Otherwise, yeah, this keyboard's been great so far. It was very easy to set up, and it has a lot of different functionality, different light functions, different light methods, that sort of thing. And so far it's been really good. So let's get right to it, because I really want to talk about this, and I really want to show rather than talk as well. So let's head on in. All right, so this is actually a graphic that I have from a past stream, and basically the conversation around this stream was, how do I connect Power BI to an ERP or a CRM? An ERP or a CRM can be anything like NetSuite from Oracle. It can be Microsoft Dynamics. It can be Salesforce. Any of those are absolutely fine. And my stern answer for anyone who asks me, how can I connect Power BI to an ERP, is simply, you don't. It might be a controversial opinion for some, but the reality is I've found that I have enough experience trying to connect it directly, and the benefits did not outweigh the detractors. Power BI is a very complicated system, and it does what it wants, and sometimes you can sort of steer it in the right way, but for the most part you have no access to the back end. You have no access to the mash engine, mashup engine, and you can't really tell it how to query. And so it's going to do what it thinks is best, and hey, don't get me wrong, the programmers and the team behind Power BI is fantastic. But if you want any sort of control as to what Power BI has access to, how Power BI accesses the data, the way is through a data warehouse. That's pretty much it. It allows you to just download the data from the ERP or CRM in a controlled fashion, transform it however you want, and then present that data to Power BI instead. It also allows you to get historical data and keep that historical data and allow Power BI access to that historical data. So again, that's a separate conversation, and the video for that is going to be right up there in a link. Feel free to give that one a watch. It was a lot of fun to make, because I know the opinion might not be the shared opinion for everyone, but that's not why we're here. We're here to talk about the fact that you've already watched that video and said, yeah, he's right, the way I'm going to connect is through a data warehouse. Or maybe you didn't and you can just ignore this whole thing. That's all well and good, no problem there. But we're going to talk about how to go about doing that, and not really how to go about doing that. This video is going to assume that you have a fair understanding of the ETL process itself, how it works. For example, we have lots of data sources over here on the left from Oracle, HubSpot, Dynamics, even APIs. And my method of connecting Power BI to those is by doing all the ETL and then having the data at rest in a table. But here's where maybe your opinion and mine differ. A lot of people, what they do is they connect Power BI directly to the source tables. I'm not one of those people. And there are several reasons for that. I propose that you strongly consider, instead of connecting Power BI directly to a table, I strongly suggest that you consider using a view or a stored procedure as a midway point, and only allow Power BI to communicate via views or stored procedures if you so desire. Views are way more convenient. The only reason I maybe use a stored procedure is if I want to parameterize my queries for something to consume it from SQL Server reporting services or Power BI report services with a paginated report that does support parameterization a lot easier than Power BI does. So, and then this doesn't just apply to Power BI. I've used this method since I started data analysis, and I started being a reporting administrator. I don't allow any reporting platforms, whether it's Crystal Reports, whether it is SQL Server reporting services, Power BI report server, Tableau. I do not allow any reporting platform to connect directly to tables. That's just my philosophy on it. I'll walk you through why. I'll walk you through the benefits. You can, of course, make your own decision. But if you do see any benefits from the ones that I walk through, it's pretty simple to implement. Even if you have an existing infrastructure, it's pretty simple to implement. And yeah, hopefully this video will help you decide for it or against it. Like, could be that nothing that I walk through here is like, yeah, this is not going to really help anything. That's absolutely fine. If that's the case, great. But at least you know you considered it. All right, so again, right here is where the meat and potatoes happens, where the magic happens, where the blood, sweat, and tears happen, whatever you want to call it. But it's basically, here I have an ETL view that takes the data from the source system, whatever that source system is, and what it does is take it and put it into a staging table. This part is mostly optional. I've seen some of your implementations. It's definitely optional because I don't see anyone doing staging in there. Sometimes you'll do it in a temp table, but most of the time you don't use staging tables, which is fine. You do you, boo. Get that money. Here we have our final table, which is libraries. I'm using the presentation I did in Spanish. Which this table is bibliotecas. A lot of people know the word biblioteca in Spanish means library in English. And so here I have my final resting place. And this stored procedure is what takes the data from the view, puts it into a staging table, manipulates it, and then puts it into its final resting place. the historical table, the fact table, dimension table, whatever you want to call it. Great. So again, a lot of people connect Power BI directly to this table here. I am against that for many reasons, which I'll go over. I am for creating views on top of the tables and allowing Power BI to access those instead. Let's walk through a couple of the reasons. So again, why do we connect Power BI to our data through views or stored procedures instead of direct access to the table? Well, the first reason is for convenience. Any logic that you build here as a result of connecting Power BI to a view, or any logic that you build in the view itself, translates to any other report that you build. It doesn't matter if you have one report or 1,000 reports, whatever that transformation is that you made, whether it's a concatenation of two columns, whether it's a filter, you're never going to have to do that again because it's done on the SQL Server side. And not only is that more convenient, but it's also more secure, which is point 2. You can control at a very detailed or a very high level all the fields and all of the actual records that are uploaded to Power BI. And I'm not talking about filtering them after you go to Power BI, because that's really the popular method, is let Power BI consume everything, which it does if you hook it into a table, and then you filter out specific records based on specific criteria. But the data is still going to Power BI. If you have 1 million records, you can't change what Power BI does to filter out those before it gets to it. You can manipulate the M query a bit, and that's absolutely fine. But for the most part, what I've seen people do is ingest everything and filter it afterwards. If you have 1 million records in a table and you're only looking for the last 7 days of data, does that make a lot of sense? Like if the data is for 3 years and you just want the last 7 days, does that really make sense? In my opinion, no. You're wasting a lot of time refreshing. You're wasting a lot of time in Power Query. It's just not necessary. And then that goes to the third point, which is control. You can change pretty much everything about the query without affecting the report itself, without having to download, manipulate, and then republish the report all over again. That's just not necessary. And if you have views, it makes it so the chances of you having to download, manipulate, and republish the report are very, very small. So this is things like changing the entire source table, things like adding where clauses, which is what we just talked about regarding getting the last 7 days of data when there's only, 7 records, let's say, and there's millions of records in the table. And then you can optimize your view and your stored procedure. If you want to do some optimization within the view, you can do that. Things like sargability, which Brent Ozar has a very great video on sargability and how to fix it. So does Eric Darling. I'd highly suggest you watch those if you have not. You can do all those things in views and stored procedures. In Power Query, you really can't optimize too much at the source. You can do all sorts of optimization. SQL BI does a fantastic job in explaining the optimization, so go to sqlbi.com for those types of things. But everyone agrees, including the folks at SQL BI, they agree that you need to do the transformation as far upstream as possible and as far downstream as necessary. Again, as far upstream as possible and as far downstream as necessary. Let's break that statement down really quick. To the left, we have upstream. To the right, we have downstream. Now, within this Power BI ecosystem, there lives a lot more stuff, right? There's Power Query, M queries, all that transformation, all the data flows, etc. But when we're looking at things at a grand scale, at a high level, Power BI is but a speck at the very end of the process. And there's so much more that goes on in the beginning, like the data source. If you can manipulate your data here, or as far left in my diagram as possible, you're doing a good job. If you don't have a choice and you have to manipulate the data, or you have to take the data as is, which is, I'd say 90%, 90 to 95% of the people I see out there, the implementations I see out there, you can't manipulate the data at the source. It's just not possible, nor is it correct. Sometimes with platforms like Salesforce, NetSuite, etc., you can build reports at the source level and then get your data from those reports, and it's sort of already transformed or already filtered. That's a good thing. That's what I'm talking about when I say manipulate it at the source or transform it at the source. Then we have manipulating it at the data warehouse level. And this is where I strongly suggest, if you have access to, you need to be doing this and not in Power BI. Power BI is great and it's good at transforming, but it is not better than SQL Server, Oracle, Postgres, whatever database platform you're running on. I can guarantee that. That's pretty much undisputed by all the experts, is that if you can do your transformation within the data warehouse, or again, as far upstream as possible to the left as possible, you should be doing that. There's zero chance it's going to be more efficient doing the transformation within Power BI than doing it in SQL Server, Oracle, wherever. Maybe that's just my opinion. I encourage you, please email me, contact me on my website, grab me on any one of my socials. I'm on the socials. Let's put it in the chat here. Feel free to educate me on how Power BI is more efficient than any of the data warehouses. I'm happy to investigate. Unfortunately, I've been using Power BI, or I guess unfortunately, I've been using Power BI for a very long time. It's close to 8 years now, and I've never found it to be more efficient than just transforming the data at the SQL Server level. But I would love to hear any ways that I can educate myself and change my opinion. I invite anyone to do so. Okay, so again, doing your transformations here at the data warehouse level, that's going to give you a lot more security, a lot more convenience, and a lot more control with your data. So here, this view is what I'm talking about. You're doing these transformations already at the data warehouse, or someone on your team is, but Power BI is very likely just connecting to the tables. Now let's see what all of that looks like. Let's see what something like this looks like and why it's easier, why it's better, why it's more controllable. Efficiency is just one of those things. If I'm honest, if you throw enough money, if you throw enough hardware or software or resources at your computers, at your servers, then by no means do you need to be more efficient as far as data pulls go. I'm just trying to make your life easier, your job easier for you, your job more convenient and more flexible. So let's dive in. What I'm going to do here is open up Power BI, and I have a couple data sets. We'll go into SQL Server so you can see the data sets themselves. But basically, we have an Airbnb database, okay? That Airbnb database contains a few tables like amenities, geolocation, and then we'll do market analysis as well. So I have a market analysis table. I think, did I use the 2019? Let me just confirm which ones I'm doing. Okay, market analysis 2019. Let's pop open that table. Now you can see there's quite a bit of data here. There's a unified identifier for the record. Basically, this is just Airbnb data, Airbnb listings, and details about them: bedrooms, guests, the revenue they've generated, the openness, whatever that means, how many days out of the month, I guess, that they're open, the occupancy ratio, the nightly rate, the lead time needed, and the length of stay. And so here, we also have the month, zip code, and the host type. So we have this table, and we're going to go ahead and remove the top 1,000 here because we just want to get all the records. There are 29,928 records in this table. And so let's do what Power BI does, right? Let's just import the data, or what most of the implementations I see do are. So I'm going to go ahead and pop open a new Power BI report. I'm going to use my recent sources, but you would be doing either Get Data or SQL Server or Oracle, whatever it is that you use. And you'd be using this. Oh, actually, no, I'm going to create a new connection just like you would, or you probably won't. 10.0.19. Okay, there's my server. Airbnb data, I think, is my database name. Gonna hit OK. It's gonna ask me for credentials. Oh no, it's not, because it saved them. Okay, so I'm gonna bring in market analysis 2019, and I'm gonna load that table. This is, again, how I see most of the implementations done, just direct access to tables. Okay, great. So now I have my data here, and I can see all of the columns that I had in my SQL Server view. And great, I'm gonna start adding some columns like the unified ID, which I definitely need. I'm gonna make that gonna make this a table, and there we are. Here's my unified IDs. I'm gonna grab a city, a zip code.
The zip code for current location is 32,000.
Okay. That's, for some reason, my HomePod decided it was going to contribute to this. It doesn't have a role here. Okay, bathrooms and bedrooms. Yes, all the good stuff here. We went ahead and added those. And now we can see, man, is there a state? I wish there was a state, but I guess this is like California or something. Joshua Tree. I don't know where Joshua Tree is. I want to say this is California. Anyway, now we have our table, and that's great. We have a couple. Let's do a table. Let's do a quick bar graph as well, right? We're gonna go to the build. We'll add a stacked bar chart, and we will break this down by the host type. So for each host type, I want to know in my x-axis, my y-axis will have host type, and my x-axis will have a distinct count of unified IDs. And then I want to make sure that my data labels are showing so I can see. I have 1973 professionals, 658 that are single owners, and 2 to 5 units. I have 505 of those. Okay, great. So I have a simple one right here. And let's say that I'm trying to build out something that I should have added before, which is there should be a month here. Okay, so I'm going to add the month here. I'm going to add it right to the top, right here. And we can see that we have a month here, and that's fine. But what if I just wanted the year? What if I just wanted to extract a year? Well, okay, cool. This is a text field. So what I need to do in Power BI is basically, since I know the first 4 digits are the month, I'm going to go ahead and create a new column. I want the existing month to be retained, but I want to add a year column, right? So I'll call this the year, and then I'll say it equals to the leftmost 4 digits of the month column. And you can do this in Power Query. You can do this in just here, which is what I did. Let's see. Oh, the month column. I think it thought I was trying to use like a function or something, probably. So let's do that instead. Yeah, there we go. Now we should be good to go. Then we're going to expand this a little bit so that we can bring in the year. So let's bring in the year. Let's bring it to the top here, and we can see 2019 is there. That's great. But guess what? Every time you build a report from this data set, what do you have to do? You have to do that one transformation and any other transformation that you have. But what if you could just do this in Power BI once, and the data would always be with whatever transformation you have? Now, let's do that. Let's do that in SQL Server or any other database platform, again, that you have. I'm using SQL Server for now. All right, so we have our data set here as well. And here, I'm actually going to go in and say, all right, well, I want the leftmost values. And I want 4 of them. And I'm going to say that's the year. I need to put this in brackets because I'm a good noodle. And there we go. Now I have that. Number 1, it's a lot quicker. And number 2, it's being done at the database level already. So by the time it makes it to Power BI, it already exists. Not only that, but I'm going to go ahead and make sure that this is an integer. So I'm going to cast it as an integer. And there we are. Now we have our data set. So how do I get this transformed version into Power BI? Well, what I would do is I would create a view. Again, we have this table right here, which has our Airbnb data. We're about to create this view here and connect that to Power BI instead. So let's go ahead and create it. We're going to create a view. And we'll call this DBO VW underscore. Let's just call it the same thing as our table. Or just market analysis. How about market analysis? Great. As to complete the view. And I like to add some comments so that people that are working on this 5 years from now know who to yell at. With anything that's wrong. Hopefully I'll be long gone, right? Created for, we'll say, Twitch. Why you should use Power BI, or why you should use views for Power BI. And this is a description. View returns data from, and then paste this from market analysis, Airbnb. Reality is you don't really have to add a description here, but I like adding one just so I know. All right, great. So we're going to go ahead and create this view. We're in the Airbnb data database. So we're going to go ahead and create the view. Now, first thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and save my report because I haven't saved it yet. And we're going to say this report is called using views, tables, Airbnb. Great. So now we have our Power BI report. However, I'm going to go ahead and grab some more data. I'm going to grab it from the view this time. And you can see that there's a new object called VW Market Analysis. I'm going to hit load on that. And again, I'm going to use import. You can use import or direct query, whichever way you want. Import will allow you to store the data up in the cloud, while direct query has a benefit of only returning the live data to the second. But if your server is not accessible, you get nothing. And also all the optimization is left to your server, not Power BI. Okay, so now we have our data. You can see when we go to our data sources, you can now see 2 data sources here, which is very good. My intention would be for you to completely delete the market analysis 2019 because that's a table. And now you're probably starting to see why I prefix all of my views with VW, is so that I can easily tell the difference between a table and a view. You don't have to do that, but it's something I liked because I find it way more convenient to do so. So this is going to be a table page, and then I'm just going to go ahead and why not duplicate it? Let's go ahead and just duplicate this page, and we'll name it view. And to get all this stuff transferred over, so I want all these columns, but I want them transferred over to the view. I'm going to leave the table page as is. What I want is the view page instead. I'm going to manipulate that page. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to grab, can I not open more than one at a time? Ooh, I can't do that. So I guess I'm going to have to do it here. Yeah, I'm going to have to do it here, which is fine. If I hover over these columns here, normally I do it like in this tab right here, but it's like, I think it's in the mode where you can only do it one at a time. which I'm not a huge fan of, but here we are. All right, so what we're gonna do is just replace all the values with the values from our view instead. So here we have a unified ID. I'm just gonna put that all the way at the bottom. Okay. Or maybe I won't put it at the bottom. Maybe I won't put it at the bottom. Okay, so I need to delete this. So remove. Okay, there we go. Okay, I'm gonna try to see if I can put it at the bottom. If not, then I'll put it right next to it. But here they are coming from the views. Okay, that's just amazing. Normally I put it at the bottom, but it looks like this time, oh no, here we go. Okay, I can put it at the bottom. And now we have can't determine relationship. That's absolutely fine. We're gonna remove this, and as I add them from the view, oh my gosh, this is like the worst, isn't it? No, I want this. Okay, let's see how we can fix this, because Microsoft, you're not making it easy for me. All right, so let's go to view. Let's go to pane manager. Show only one active pane. I think that's how you fix that. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to change this, and we're going to add all the columns along the bottom. And as we add them on the bottom, we'll remove the ones on the top. So I'm going to add year and remove year. Then I'll add month and remove month. Then I'll add, and here we can see the sum of year is what's selected. I'm going to right click that and say don't summarize. Then I'll add the city. And this just helps me keep organized. You can also do it by doing something like adding the column right below the other one and then removing the one that you just replaced. But I just tried that for my last demo and I kept getting confused as to which one I had just added, whether it was the top or bottom one. So I feel this is an easy way of separating things without getting confused. All right, so we have zip code. We're going to add zip code. Bathrooms. We never added bathrooms, it seems. Okay, let's try that again. Bathrooms. We have bedrooms. Remove bedrooms. Guests. Remove guests. And now we are good to go. Now we can hover over these and we can see that they're all coming from the view, VW. Not only that, but when we click on this table and put it into focus, you can see that there's no longer a check mark next to Market Analysis 2019, which is our table. The check mark is only next to VW Market Analysis. So if I add one more here from the table, you can see that not only does it go weird, but there's also a check mark here. So I want to make sure that there are no checkboxes checked on Market Analysis 2019. I'm also going to go in and remove something. Oh, Power BI didn't do it. Usually Power BI will do something finicky where it'll help you out by automatically determining relationships between tables. That's not something we wanted. So I was getting ready to uncheck that, but I didn't need to. All right, so we're going to do the same thing here. Host type, which is this one. I'm going to remove that. And count of unified ID. I'm going to add it from our view instead of our tables. Right click and say count distinct. And now we have the same exact data. But if you notice, I have year here. Did I ever create a column for year the same way that I did it in Power BI? No. It was just there when I brought it in from the table, because it's always been there. As far as I'm concerned, the Power BI just brought it in as if it was part of the source. Why? Because the transformation occurred at the view level, not at the Power BI level. So I don't have to do that transformation anymore. For every report I create, as long as I'm using this view, the year just exists by itself. It's always been there. Okay, so if I have, for example, some code that I just made right before starting this stream, where I don't like the way, let's just take a look at this and how it is. I don't like the way that this view presents the month. See how it says 2019 2019-1, but it also says 2019-10. No, it should be double digits so that everything's uniform, right? So I created this quick code that is basically saying, hey, when the length of the month, let me go ahead and name this as MA, so I can give it a nice alias because we might be joining it soon. When the length of digits or characters in the month column is 6, we know that it's a single digit month. And there's many ways you can do this. It's up to you how you choose to do it. When it equals 6 only though, that means that it's a single digit month and I need to concatenate the first 5 digits, then a 0, and then the last 1 digit. Otherwise, if it's a 7 length already, don't worry, just go ahead and give me back whatever the raw value is. Okay, so let's go ahead and query that and see how it looks first. All right, and now we can see 2019-01, 2019-10, 2019-04, 05, 06, etc. So now it's always one singular length and not various lengths. So I'm going to go ahead and create this view, but obviously I won't be able to create it again because it already exists, right? There it is, already an object there. So what I'm going to do instead is create or alter this view. If you're in Oracle, you can use create or replace. I think there's like a modify in some other database platforms, I'm not sure, but create or alter is a nice convenient way for you to do it in SQL Server. Okay, so I have my SQL Server version done. Now, what do I have to do to get that new value that has a full 7-digit or a 7-character value? Well, technically, if I want to, I can actually replace this value with month. If you look, I have this refresh data. When I refresh the data, I'll get a brand new column. I think I refreshed the wrong table. I'll refresh the view. I have a brand new column. And that brand new column is called month fixed. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and add month fixed to this table right next to month. And that's convenient because now I can just use it. But the reality is, I don't even like the way month is there. Like the way month is presented, I have no use for this column without the 0 preceding it. So what I'm actually going to do is replace this whole month. Maybe I'll add a month like this as month raw, just so I can retain the raw value if I need it. But this month fixed, I actually want it to be the value of month. I don't need month to be incorrect anymore. And let's go to PowerBI. Let's go ahead and remove the month fixed column because I don't need that. And I'll go back to SQL Server. And instead of having month fixed, I'm going to comment that out now. And I'm just going to call it month. Because our graphics, our report, which is again already deployed, already has the month column. It's already using it. So why not just replace it? I'm going to refresh the data. And of course, month is now gone. No, it wasn't deleted from the model. Let's see, did I name it incorrectly? Let's try that again. Refresh. What the heck? It's still there. Is it really because month is like lowercase? There's no way it's like that. Let's try. There's no way PowerBI is that finicky. Then again, it's PowerBI. Why wouldn't it be finicky? Let's see. Of course, PowerBI is that finicky. So yeah, we're pleasing PowerBI and we're just naming it uppercase month for no reason at all. You can also just edit this query and fix it there. That's absolutely fine too. But now we have no need. We were able to fix that within SQL Server and not have to manipulate anything in Power BI anymore other than that whole weird month issue, which It's the first time I've run into that problem with case-sensitive column names for some weird reason. But now what we have is the ability to just change data, manipulate data at the source or as close to the source as possible without having to change the Power BI report. Now, let's get into one of our other points. That one's sort of the convenience one, but we have some security. So if you want to control the fields and records that are uploaded to Power BI, not after they get uploaded, but before, all you have to do is add where clauses, right? So let's say I get a call, you get a call from your boss that says, hey, this report is showing Big Bear Lake, Joshua Tree, Yucca Valley, all those, and I only wanted to show Joshua Tree. It should have never shown Big Bear City, Big Bear Lake, or any of those. It should have only been for Joshua Tree. What's going on? We need to update this now. Well, if I have this big report, and let's say I have like 5 reports that all do this, I have to download all of those reports. I have to add the filters here. Let's go ahead and add the filters at the table level, because of course we're going to do that. We're going to edit this query. It's going to take us to the Power Query Editor, and then we're going to have to filter this to only be Joshua Tree. Hit OK, and now we are good to go here. And then we have to republish this report again. That's annoying, and we don't want to have to do that. So here we have our view version, which is still from Big Bear Lake, right? Now what we're going to do is just add a where clause all the way at the bottom here. Where city equals Joshua Tree. And let's just confirm.
Is a plant species
That's apparently I don't know how to say the word city, because I keep triggering our digital assistant. All right, so now we have our Joshua Tree records. There's only 2,600 of them. Very important, right? Because this means the data is never going to make it to Power BI in the first place. Very important to know. It will never make it to Power BI. All right. So now I'm going to deploy that. That's done. And then what I'm going to do is right click and refresh. And again, only the 2,000 or so records get loaded into Power BI in the first place. Power BI has no knowledge of those other ones. No knowledge whatsoever. And so we can't like dive in or do a quick dive into the data set like we can with this one and simply uncheck it. Someone who's savvy can download this PBIX, remove this right here, and suddenly they have access to all the records. No, with the view, it's done. There's nobody that's going to get access to this unless they have access to SQL Server. That's a very good way of controlling. And not only that, but it's way more convenient because I only had to do this once and I refresh all of my reports, or just wait for tomorrow and just say, hey, it's going to be fixed by tomorrow. I confirmed it with one. We're good to go here. There's no need to download every single report, fix it, and re-upload the report. It's just not necessary. All right, so let's continue. Where is it? Okay, here. Let's continue with our reasoning here. Not only can you add filters, but you can also sort of redact data. That's the important part, right? Is redacting data as well. How do I redact data but still not break the report? So let's pretend, again, your boss calls you in a panic and says, hey, we were never supposed to show, let's say you have a report with the nightly rate here. Here's the nightly rate. God, that looks horrible. Is that really how it shows? Good Lord. What is that? Let's take a look. Let's take a look. Okay. Oh, all right. So it's just showing in Okay. Actually, this is a great this is a great thing right here. It looks like this is just commas, right? So like these are commas, you know, in the rest of the civilized world, it's commas and not decimals. So how can we fix this without actually having to manipulate the data within Power BI? Well, it looks like I can just replace this nightly rate. Here's the nightly rate. I'm gonna just replace the commas with a decimal. And one of the things I have to do is make sure that there are no values over 1000 here. So these values over 1000, it's not using any separators in the thousands, which is a good thing, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and replace this value as the nightly rate. And I'm going to transition from comma separators to decimal separators. And these are literally, it looks like literally cents for the nightly rate. I guess they have to be done by cents, by like fractions of a cent. It's very interesting. Very interesting. I think this is like an average nightly rate, and that's why it has so much here. All right, so let's go ahead and just manipulate this. Where's our view? Let's find our nightly rate. And again, we're replacing this value. We can also do like a nightly rate raw, so that we can keep the raw value presented to Power BI. But the reality is I want to replace the value directly. I don't really care for Power BI to even see this value. What I want to make sure is that I have to do as minimal work as possible on Power BI itself to change the raw value, or the real value, the value that gets presented. So we can see here, it still has the commas. As soon as I refresh, you can see the decimals went up. So now with the nightly rate, I can actually treat this as a decimal. So I'm going to change the data type to decimal. And now I can also choose to only show two values after the decimal point. And we're good. Now the nightly rate is here. But again, you did a good job, you launched it, but your boss was like, no, we weren't supposed to show the nightly rate at all. So, okay, that's fine. What we do is, instead of the nightly rate being calculated like this, the nightly rate is actually going to be null as nightly rate. And I have two values there, so I can't do that. So now when I deploy this, all I have to do is refresh. And now the nightly rates are all gone. And if your boss calls you again and says, no, what you were actually supposed to do is just put like digits here as if the data was masked. It's okay, no problem. What I'm gonna do is replace that with nightly rate, replace it with like 3 number signs. And in Power BI, I refresh here. Here I have to be a little bit careful because I'm actually changing the data types, right? So this right here, what I want to do is switch it back to text. And now when I refresh, now I have masked data. You can use asterisks as well. That's your call. But nobody has access to see this nightly rate anymore. And that's something that's really important as well. Okay, so then there's something a little bit more complicated, which is it goes back to a little bit more to the convenience aspect of this. So the convenience aspect is, make sure I'm not messed up here. Oh, it's just my Twitch app decided to not work. Whatever. Okay, so then there's the concept of having multiple tables and joining those multiple tables. For example, this nightly, this market analysis actually coincides with a geolocation table. And the geolocation table just has, for every listing, it has the geolocation for it. So great. If I wanted to get that, geolocation and I'm using the standard way, which is, direct access to tables, I would add the source for geolocation data. Here it is right here, street name, latitude, longitude, unified ID. We have that unified ID, so we know we can grab it. I'm going to import the table, and this is how I see it done. Again, in most implementations I see. And now we have geolocation data. We're going to put this off to the right here. We have market analysis 2019, and then we have geolocation. And so we're going to join them with the unified ID right here. So we can see that the unified ID is correct on both. There's a many to many here, which is interesting. I would only assume that the geolocation data would have one geolocation for each one. But if you look, geolocation also has something called month. And that's kind of interesting, I guess. And what's the problem? Well, the problem is in Power BI, you can't join tables by 2 columns, right? So you have to get sneaky. You have to say, okay, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new column that concatenates, and we'll call this unified ID link. We have to create a record that concatenates the unified ID with something like a pipe and then the month. And that value has to be done on both sides, on the geolocation side and on the market analysis side. And now I can actually link it. And now it's a one-to-one relationship. It gets worse. If you haven't noticed, the month value that was put into the market analysis 2019 page is single-digit months, but the one in geolocation is double-digit months, even if the month is 1 through 9. So it's never going to join. We're basically never going to have any data, supporting data or information, unless it's a 2-digit month. We're only going to see data for 2-digit months. That gets really complex. So I'm going to extend this out a little bit and shrink this guy. And I want to add data from latitude and longitude, right? So I'm going to say I want to add latitude and I want to add longitude. And we can see here a ton of blanks and empties because there's just no match for them. There's just no match. So we're going to try something like enforce the relationship, right? And have it filter. How is that? Only show values, don't show blanks or something? The reality is we have so many blanks, whereas with SQL Server, we can control that a lot more. We can establish that the from table, the principal table, is the listing, and the geolocation data, if found, we can grab it. So let's do that. Just avoid this whole mess that we have here. And the reality is we only want those 2 columns. So we're now ingesting the entire geolocation data set just for the 2 columns that we're doing because we need to, right? We have a necessity here. But here with SQL Server, you don't have to do that. You can just add the longitude and latitude to the market analysis 2019 table. So here I have my join. We're going to do a left join, or here I have my view. We're going to do a left join over to geolocation. I want to make sure I fully qualify my database. I'm going to say it's on ma.unifiedID equals g.unifiedID. And then also I want to make sure that I'm using the right value. And that right value for my month is right here. On the new unified value with the leading 0 equals the g.month. And that's what I want to actually Oh, it looks like we have some ambiguous columns, which is absolutely fine. We can make sure we do that. Actually, I have SQL prompt, so I'm just going to do that automatically. Or maybe not. Let's do MA. It works 60% of the time, all the time. Here we go. We have MA. And there. Now we should be okay. Let's check the query just to make sure. And again, we still have our Joshua tree filter there, right? So now we have the same 2,600 records, but now we have the ability to add our latitude and our longitude. And let's see how the data looks. Do we get any matches? No, we didn't. And it seems that it's because we don't have any data for 2019. It's all 2020 in geolocation. So we wouldn't have been able to do that in Power BI regardless. So let's take a look at geolocation and let's just choose a distinct month. We'll use 2022-06. So here, instead of this, we'll say this and here is just going to say g.month equals 2022-06. And now we should get matches. There we go. There's some matches here. And we can even go further and your boss can say, hey, I only want data if we can see geolocation data for it. If not, okay, then let's just make this an inner join. And now we'll cut the records down natively even more. So now we only have 1,300 records instead of 2,200 records. And not only that, let's actually just go ahead and deploy this and let's refresh. And let's add a quick counter here for the number of unified IDs in this view so that we can see the data actually get smaller as we go. So we're going to do a unified ID. We're going to get a count distinct of the unified IDs, 271. And after we execute this, we'll go ahead and refresh. And we can see that only 136 of those actually have geolocation data. And again, your boss says, oh, we want a map of them, but we want to see, or we want to be able to export them into our Esri system. And we want the geolocation data, which we can see right here now, because we got it added, right? We have latitude and we have longitude. Your boss says, oh, man, well, I actually need them together. I need them together, and they're really ugly. They have commas. Sorry, folks, in Europe and the rest of the civilized world. They have commas, and we can't really do much with that comma. They need to be decimal places. So, okay, well, no problem. Let's treat it the same exact way, right? We're going to go ahead and replace it. Okay. Okay, there we go. We're going to go ahead and replace. Anytime you see a decimal or a comma, we're going to replace with a decimal. And then we'll say as, and it can still retain latitude and longitude. Again, with Power BI, you'd have to do this all on your own with the substitute function and do it for every single report that you've deployed. That's frustrating. So I'm going to go ahead and just refresh here. And each time I refresh here, just remember, keep in mind that you don't have to refresh it here in Power BI Desktop. You could just hit refresh on the service without having to deploy the report. And that's the convenience that I'm talking about here. This is still convenient because it means you can test it on one report and know that tomorrow it's going to be fixed everywhere if you want to wait until tomorrow's refresh. But this is a lot easier here. All right, so again, your boss tells you, oh, it has to be combined. Well, in Power BI, you'd have to go in, concatenate them, which we all know the concatenate function in Power BI is a singular one. It only concatenates two values. So you'd have to keep wrapping it in concatenates or using the and function. With SQL Server, you don't have to do that. So it's a lot easier for me to create this value. I can just say concat this value with a comma, and then this value, latitude and longitude, as, and then I can name it something like lat long combine. And now in Power BI, all I have to do is refresh, and that's done. Now I can create a little map. Let's see where the map is. It's right here. Map and filled map visuals are disabled. What is wrong with this thing? Oh my gosh. Is this like a brand new thing of Power BI that we're using? Why would maps be disabled? It's not even a preview feature. Oh my gosh. Where is this thing? Regional settings? No. Direct query, data load. Why would the map visual need to be enabled? Preview is not a preview feature. Where am I going with this? Tracing. Okay, I didn't even check anything. It's just there. Okay, so the location is lat long combine. Oh, there it is. Map and global and options, settings, options, global security. All right, let's try that again. Options. Where's global? I don't see global at all. Options, global security. Oh, security. Security. Use map and filled map visuals. Okay. All right, I enabled them. So let's go. There we go. Okay. So now we can see all the listings on a map right here. Sometimes the latitude and longitude just don't work, and for that you might need a location combined, or you might have a special visual, a custom one that only takes latitude and longitude together. That's an easy way to do that. So that's another, again, a multitude of reasons why it's way more convenient to just do this in the view. Let's talk about changing data sources. If my boss calls me and tells me, hey, someone just added a brand new data source, this market analysis 2019 table is no longer valid, it needs to be gutted and changed to a completely different one, the table's live, the DBAs took care of it, or whoever it is, or even, hey, you have to take care of it, load it, we still need the other one, or can you present a new one? All I have to do is just change this right here, and as long as the columns are the same, it's absolutely fine. Even if the columns are not the same, again, I just replace some of this stuff. Like, let's say for some reason the openness is just not there and I don't want to break anything, I would just comment this out and then I would say null as openness. I don't want to break the report, but the new report doesn't use openness at all. It was never there to begin with. Here it is. The openness is still here. No problem. However, it's just blank, right? And when I push it through in Power BI, I refresh my data tomorrow morning, nothing changes, nothing breaks. It's all good here. And then the last topic, we already covered where clauses, we already covered masking data, we already covered adding columns and how easy that is, adding relationships. And again, I didn't even add relationships. I just let SQL Server form the relationship with the join and added the two supplemental columns from it. That's all you really had to do. Yeah, you can absolutely bring them in separately and do the join within Power BI. But when it's small stuff like that, you may not want to. You may not need that. And again, I'm going to be using this for all of my reports, this same view. I don't have to recreate this view again and again and again. So the last thing is optimization. So let's say that I had something that was not very optimized. For example, I someone decided in the query that they were going to do a where zip code equals 92315. This, as we know, or if you've seen any of Brenno's or Eric Darling's or any other folks' videos, you know that this is not sargable. The search argument is not qualified to be an implicit conversion or an explicit conversion here, or no conversion needed. It is an implicit conversion that's taking place here. What it's doing is converting every single value in the table for zip code. It's converting it to a string, and then it's checking it against the 92315. We want it to do the opposite. So what I would say here is either, and again, the report's already deployed in Power BI. There's all sorts of conversions going on and you have to fix it, but you can't. Here in SQL Server, all you have to do is either remove this and just have it checked against the data, or cast, if it's a date, for example, you just cast this as a date on the other side of the search argument of the predicate, and you'd automatically be able to do all sorts of sargability efforts here, all sorts of optimization efforts. So it's something that you should be really aware of. As far as optimization goes, there's probably no better way to optimize a Power BI report than optimizing it at the source or as close to the source as possible. Okay, so that was a lot, but I do want you to have a few takeaways from here. You are, of course, I'm not going to judge you. Nobody's going to judge you. But if you are having problems with the length of time a refresh takes, for example, for only a small amount of data, for having to constantly change things around and having to download reports, change them, and upload them again when their data changes, if you're having some issues with masking data and you have to come up with all sorts of complex ways to do it in Power BI, if you need to change a source table very quickly on a repeated basis, and you find yourself having to download, change it, and then republish the report, please consider doing your transformations within SQL Server and connecting Power BI to views instead. I have found that it is the best way to ensure that you are the one that's responsible for optimization. You are the one that's responsible for transformation. And really the buck starts stopping with you when you do this, right? So there is some added obligation. It's not like, oh yeah, we just take everything into Power BI and just manipulate it. Now you're more responsible for stuff that occurs within SQL Server itself. But the fact is, I've taken a look at some of the queries that Power BI uses to get its data when you just connect it straight to a table. It's very interesting stuff that goes on there. So at least when you're doing this way, what you're connecting it to is still its rambunctious self, but you're sort of corralling it into this lane that only gets it the data it absolutely needs, and no other fluff, no additional processing that it has to do to filter out records or change records or anything like that. So I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions, all the scripts, by the way, the PBIX, the scripts, all that stuff is going to be in the Google Drive description here below if you're watching this on YouTube, which, by the way, if you are watching on YouTube, I just want to say thank you very much, because I'm to a particular subscriber count that I really wanted to obtain. I told myself when I reached X amount of subscribers, I was going to get myself a Mac Mini and another camera, and that happened last month, and we're way beyond that now, actually. So I'm very thankful for all of you. Thank you all for your support. Thank you all on Twitch as well for your support. And yeah, let me know if you have any ideas for future projects, any questions about what you just saw. I'm happy to walk you through. Until next time, though, hope you have a wonderful evening, wonderful morning. If you're watching this in the morning, wonderful afternoon. Get some lunch. You deserve it. Hope you have a great day. But see you next time.